Welcome to Living Multiliteracies, a series of webinars hosted by the School and Youth Librarianship programs at the University of North Texas. In this session, Marco Zannier, Library Service Director of Aldine ISD in Houston and Adjunct Lecturer for UNT, explains how the 2020 pandemic has created an opportunity for school librarians to lead the way in online education. He gives us a model for creating a library without walls. The webinar began by inviting participants to join the interactive platform Nearpod. We joined in the recording after technical issues were settled.
They needed to find something that to help them apply for college, and they didn't have time to come in the library. So everything they needed was when they weren't there. So back then in A-Leaf, we talked about creating libraries that were not existing in the space. And so Lisa Stultz is in here with me. She's an amazing librarian, by the way, and she's now a director as well. So she was like my sister librarian when I was in A-Leaf. So she and I and a couple of others sort of led that charge in A-Leaf to create a robust online presence. And so I want us to look at these two websites. First, I'm going to show you a public library. So I apologize. I know somebody immediately said, can I see a good school one? Because we tend, when we talk about good library websites, we tend to show public libraries. And I apologize. I am going to show you a school one. But let's look at this public library one. So those of you that are on Nearpod, play with it yourself. Those of you that are watching, I'll sort of click around and scroll. I want you to just look at, oops, I'm on the Nearpod again, sorry. I want you to look at what is on this website, okay? So this is a public library. I'm just gonna scroll, and I apologize for scrolling fast. Try not to get dizzy, but I wanna show you enough of it to get an idea. Keep in mind, this is a public library, so they might have someone they pay to make this website. So in a school library, ours might not be this pretty, but I want you to look at the stuff that's on this website. And in case you're checking your speaker, I'm actually just not talking, so. All right, so you have an idea of that one. That was the really impressive public library, and I have to move, okay, I'm gonna move the Nearpod people first. All right, and those of you that are watching the screen, so here's a school library. And Christy, I appreciate that you're putting the links in the chat for everybody. I'm just getting all kind of help today. All right. I'll show you another page or two. We're going to talk about this one later, so don't worry if you can't see it too well. All right, so let me get back to the Nearpod. Here we go. So here's my question. What did you see? Just jot something down on a sticky note. Jot something down you saw that was cool on those websites. cool or useful, or if you hated it. Hopefully you didn't hate anything you saw, but if you did, you did. All right, so I'll just read out some of these. Arrows showing where to click things, graphics, summer reading stuff, virtual tours, ebooks links. It looked clear and concise. Interactive stuff, COVID information, e-resources. Somebody said Harris County Public Library's website is so much nicer than Houston Public. That's funny. I didn't accidentally pick that one, whoever said that. Multilingual, yes. Virtual field trips, virtual story time, virtual tours, yep. Library card info, how to get a library card, yes. Visuals to make things engaging, okay. All those things are crucial when you create this library without walls, because I have seen lots of libraries that have a website, and I almost want to call the librarian and say, you shouldn't say you have a website, because I'm looking at what you have and it's like 2 links and it has your name and the hours. Like that's not a website. So when you are creating this virtual presence because your students are at home and you're being the librarian at your house, think about all those things that you saw on those websites that help you create this library without walls. It's all the resources that people need at their fingertips. All right, so this one's going to be, so I want you to think just for a second. And so I'm going to frame this for all of your different roles, because the question is, what do patrons ask for when they walk into your library? So that's easy for librarians to answer. If you're a library student, we've taught you enough about libraries that you should be able to pretend you're a librarian. So pretend you're a librarian, okay? If you're a library director, think back to when you were a librarian. If you're an other, I can't help you. So pretend you work in a library, or if you've gone to a library, then you've heard, or think about what you've asked for when you've walked in, okay? All right, and again, I need some feedback on this one. Give me one thing patrons ask for when they walk into a library. Books, what's new? Graphic novels, books, books, books. Where do I find things? New books, books. How to put a book on hold. Book suggestions. Bilingual books, ebooks, books. What are your hours? Yep. Help with research. How to use computers. Where do I find stuff? Help with homework. Yep. Where's Dog Man? That's funny. Yep. Questions about fines. How do I print things? How do I get things checked out? Miss Library Lady, where's the graphic novels? That's funny. Makerspace activities. Curricular collaboration. Someone was thinking like a school librarian. Okay. So a lot of you wrote books, book suggestions. Where's my favorite book? Where are the scary books? Where are the funny books? Where are the bilingual books? So that's the first thing you want to make sure. And that's probably the thing that irks me the most when I go to a school library web page, I'm putting air quotes, and I can't find where to click to find the books. Like that should be the first thing you put on the website is how do I click, where do I click so that I can look up a book? And especially, so that's important all the time, but especially in this virtual environment, your students should be able to immediately figure out where to go online to look for the books. Now that's if you're giving books out. So that's a whole nother conversation that I'm having with my librarians is, are we going to give out books if kids are at home? My librarians are going to want to close their ears now because they're probably sick of talking about this. But what are we going to do? Are we giving out books? If we give out books, how are we going to give them out? And we've been talking a lot about, books having to be quarantined. So ebooks are going to be a big thing, which we'll talk about later. But so books, important to put that on there. General library information, yes, that's important when we're in school. But when we're not in school, nobody really cares when we're open or closed because we're always closed, right? But get that on there. Research info, collaboration, good websites, databases, all that stuff should be prominent, visible, easy to get to. But also fun things like some of you said maker spaces or, how do I get on the computer to play a game? Those things should be on your website too. So think about all those things that people ask for and put them on the website. That's how you create this library without walls, because you don't have the benefit of being in the space and hearing that question. If you have 3,000 students, odds are maybe 5 of them are going to email you to ask you for something. You've got to predict what they need because you've heard it enough times. You've been in the library, you've been in a library, you've been the librarian. You have to be able to predict your patrons' needs and get that all put in that virtual library so that when a student shows up, instead of not finding it and giving up, it's there, because odds are they're not going to take the time to ask you, okay? All right, so the second thing, so the first thing is the resources, right? We have to be able to place on their website. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat as well as, okay, let's see. I'm going to stop for a second and look at the chat. Yes, if you have club information about clubs, that's important. Somebody is asking about elementary librarians. So again, think about your patrons. What do your elementary kids do? They look for books and maybe they play with stuff. So your whole website should look very playful, and it should have a space where they can look for books, and then everything else should be playful and fun, right? It's all the fun, goofy stuff they like to do in the library. Have a fun video link, and then have something where they can play a game. All that should exist there on your page. And then yours is going to be important to have information for parents to help their kids be able to use your website, okay? Which beautifully transitions to this slide that I'm talking about now. So we have the resources on this virtual library without walls, but remember that we have the resources in our library with walls, and half the people don't know how to use them, right? Kids come in and say, I can't find a book. And your first thought is, we're surrounded. How can you not find a book, right? So think about what it is you always have to show your patrons when they come in so that they can get those resources, okay? So it's not enough to just put the resources out there. We have to then help people find the resources without the benefit of being face-to-face with the person. So what I found in the virtual environment is being available through either email or chat, something where a patron can reach you. But second, and more important, is having those how-tos on the website themselves. Some of you mentioned that you saw on that school, by the way, that school website was my former school website. So I made sure that it looked really good before I showed it to you. And it's not even my current school, and I'm still keeping that website up to date. Long story. That's all right. We'll talk about it another time. So make sure, some of you said you saw that I had big arrows and I had basic instructions. Click here, go here, click this, right? Put all that on your website, because if a student or a teacher goes on your website looking for a database for a specific activity or lesson, and they don't know how to get to the databases, they need somewhere on your first page to be able to figure out where to click to find instructions to get to the databases, okay? Everything needs to be perfectly clear. Laura's asking, how does one set up this library without walls? It's all about building that web page. And then putting the resources on it. So the web page you saw, that was my old school web page, the purple one, that's all done in Google Sites. Super easy. Yep, Holly just said Google Sites. I can help you with Symbaloo, Holly. But I find Google Sites super easy to use, and most districts use the Google Suite, so there's not a lot of convincing involved in begging your tech people to allow you to use it, okay? So make sure to put those instructional videos, make sure to put handouts, offer training sessions for people. So I ended up doing that with my school last year when we went virtual. You know, we were pushing out all these digital tools teachers could use, like Nearpod, and people were saying they'd never heard of Nearpod. So we started offering virtual training sessions where they could come in and sit with us for 30 minutes online, and we would show them the tool, click around, they could ask us questions. We would, quickly build something so they could see it, build a lesson, push it out, let them play with it. And then everyone got to see how it worked and then take that knowledge and use the tool themselves. So it's about giving them the tools they need to figure out how to use the resources. So keep that in mind. Everything you stick on your website that's a little complicated, like getting to the databases or using the library management software to find a book, all those things require explanation because they're the things you would explain face to face if your patrons were in the library. So if you have to explain it face to face, put it on your website. Put the explanation on the website, clear, easy instructions, and think about your audience. Are the instructions for the teacher? Are they for some small children? Are they for parents? And gear that information for that specific audience, okay? Ebooks. So ebooks are going to be huge, even though for years we've been saying ebooks are not going to be huge, right? I'm looking at Trisha's face, and Trisha's like, yep, yep. For years we've been saying, oh, ebooks are going to die. Nobody reads books online. Everybody likes paper. You know, it's not worth buying them because only 2 kids use them. And now all of a sudden, everybody needs an ebook, okay? So I hate that I was proven wrong on that one, but I've sucked it up and I've moved on. I was wrong. We need the ebooks. So especially in this environment where librarians, and hopefully if you're a district librarian or a library director, so I think my one other library director is Lisa. I know she's having these conversations. But those of you that are campus librarians, I hope you're having a conversation in your district about how to handle materials, because there's a whole safety and quarantine issue involved. I will give you the quick and dirty. When materials come back from kids, they have to be quarantined at least 4 days. You have to have a place to quarantine those materials. So it's either got to be a back shelf, a back room, tables in the corner that are roped off. You don't touch them. You label them by date. And then when the 5-day period is over, you take them and recirculate them. Issues that come along with that are due dates, going past due dates, extending how long kids can have books, deciding how many books kids have, because if you're used to giving your kids 10 books each, but all the books have to be quarantined when they come back, after the second circulation, you've got no books, right? So there's lots of things to consider when you're circulating print materials because of the transmission of the virus. So that's why ebooks are huge. Your district is probably talking about buying a lot more ebooks. They're probably talking about getting more access to individual titles. And they're probably talking about how to push those ebooks out to kids. Make sure that's on your Library Without Walls, that you've got a prominent space for the ebooks, that you promote them, that you give directions on how to use them, that you're working with your teachers and explaining to your teachers how to get them so that the teachers can reinforce that in their classes and tell students how to find the ebooks. And talk your teachers out of all trying to use the same ebook the same week, because if you have limited access and you only one kid can check it out, they can't all do the same lesson using the same book. So it's going to have to be some creativity in finding access to different materials. Look in your area, because your public library system probably has a massive ebook collection that is accessible for free with a library card. So if you can get your students in your school to register for a library card, then if they can't find the 2 ebook copies you have of that book, they can probably go on their public library system and access one of those 500 copies that they have. Look in your county libraries as well. If you have access to like TextShare or TextQuest, look through that, because they also have ebooks. So there's lots of places to find. I think IMLS even has an ebook collection that was put out for free during the Obama presidency. That was one of the things he worked with the IMLS to do, was create a collection of ebooks that were accessible to kids all over the United States. So look up those things and explain to your parents, your kids, your teachers how to access them, and make sure to put those things easily accessible and clickable on your Library Without Walls. I'm sorry, I was looking at the chat. I have my, you would laugh if you could see me. I have my phone here following the Nearpod. Then I have my first monitor here. The chat's on the left. I can see you guys in the middle. Then I have a monitor on the right with the Nearpod. So if you see me bouncing around, it's because I'm trying to figure out where I am. Okay, research guidance. So this you would have seen on my old school website as I was scrolling through it. It's a Symbaloo. If you don't know what Symbaloo is, it's a great tool for compiling resources as buttons. So you can't really interact with that one now because I just made it an image. But if you were on my website or my old website, you would be able to click any of those buttons to get to those resources. And I find it a great way to make collections so that kids can go to that one Symbaloo and they can click around to get what they need. So things to consider putting in there. You'll see on the top left in bright red with stars, I had book search. Remember, book search has to be prominent. I had a library bookshelf, an e-bookshelf where the kids could look on my bookshelf and see books that I had read because they were always asking me for recommendations. This is a way for them to see books I had read with my recommendations. I also have databases in the middle. On the top right, I had links to websites that would help them make citations. So when we're doing responsible use of information, then they could go to those citation EasyBib and the OWL at Purdue to learn how to create those citations. On the bottom right, I had news sources. So you would consider putting websites like National Geographic, Newsweek, Time, current news sources, but also now that we're in coronavirus mode, think about having a whole section for health resources because your parents might not know where to go look to find health information. So, and they may all be, just Googling, and you don't want them to just Google like my mother does to get medical advice. It's not a good idea ever. You got to think about where you're looking. Um, so you can pre-populate all those things onto the Symbaloo and put fun stuff on there. If you've got elementary kids, have links to pbskids.org or places where they can play games. Lisa will be excited to see I have a link to Teen Book Con on there because she and I are the chairs for Teen Book Con. But I've got places where kids can click if they're aspiring writers and they want to go online to this online community, Teen Ink, and just do writings and publish and have their peers read it. There was Chick Lit used to be up there, but I think Chick Lit went away. I think that website died, but it was a really cool website for specifically for girl readers. And then there was one for boys too, Boys Read. So just think about your audience, what kind of stuff they could use, and get it all on your Library Without Walls. And Symbaloo is a great place to do it. By the way, if you've never used Symbaloo, you can make multiple Symbaloos in your account. So the one you're looking at would have been my main one on my website, but you can create individualized Symbaloos for specific purposes. So if you have a teacher that is doing a project where kids have to research famous Spanish artists, then you can create a whole Symbaloo just for that teacher with links just for her kids to get just that information. Okay, so it's very cool. Okay, learning experiences. Think about the stuff you do as a librarian in your library when your students come in. You provide learning experiences for them. You create makerspace areas where they can play and experiment and do STEM things. You put things up in the wall that make them think, right? You create displays for a reason that are connected to maybe things that are happening in the classroom or things connected to their cultures. You probably have events and festivals in your library. You probably have posters on the wall that promote reading, but also you may have some that show monuments in the world. You may have some that show different countries. You may have flags up in your library. Those are all things you're doing to build schema and provide learning experiences for your students. So think about providing that as well on your Library Without Walls. So I'm going to do a really cute one here through Nearpod. If you've used Nearpod, you're familiar with this one. So those of you that are on the Nearpod can play with this one. So let's say you know that your ELA teacher is reading a short story virtually with her students, and the setting is a cabin in the woods, and you work in the inner city, and the only thing your students have seen is an apartment in the inner city. You can provide this learning experience and let your teacher know that you've got this tool that you want to push out to kids to build that schema. So if you're on the Nearpod, you can play with this 3D, just tap it and move it. I'm going to do it for the people that are watching. But it's almost like a field trip. Like I can take students there to see and to experience, and we can talk about, right? And then they have this image to go with their learning. So think about the field trips you can provide online. If you notice when I was scrolling on my old website, one of the things we were really worried about when we started the home quarantine was that kids were just going to go stir crazy in their houses, and that it was getting warm outside. Where I don't know where all of you are, but I'm in Texas, and it's warm. And by warm, I mean really hot. And that's when people go out and go swimming. And, you know, during spring break is when people take trips, or during summer vacation. And all of that got canceled. Like the entire world just canceled everything. And so kids who normally would go on vacations didn't get to, even if it was, you know, just drive down to Galveston for the day and lay on the beach, or if it was, you know, my parents are rich and we're going to fly to Paris for 2 weeks. Both of those things equally got canceled. And those were two experiences that students were robbed of. So think about providing that on your Library Without Walls. It's something I did for my school. I had virtual field trips, and I tried to do a variety of things. So I had like museums for the kids that were into art, but I had uh, like I had a goofy thing where kids could go on and take a picture of themselves and then like superimpose them and make a fake vacation picture of themselves like on an island or something. And we did it like a school-wide thing where we said, you know, go on a fake vacation. We called it a vacation. We said, go on a vacation and make a picture of yourself on vacation, because we needed them to stop thinking about being stuck at home. I had a flight, I don't know if you saw, I had a flight simulator on there. So the kids that were interested, you know, in flying could go in and be the pilot and do a flight simulator. And on that flight simulator, you can choose where you're flying in the world. So you can fly over different countries in the world. It's super cool. So think about those experiences you can offer to your students, even though they're not there in front of you. Because the more we can push out to kids, the better experience they're going to have being at home. You know, at home, they have the same resources they've always had. We need to think about what resources we can provide that aren't normally there around them in their house. So now I'm going to switch from talking about kids to talking about teachers. And I'm going to try to not get really excited here, because this is the most exciting thing that I did at my last school when we went into quarantine. And so some of you know me because I see some of my librarians and some of my old friends in here. Some of you know that, oh, what the heck, we'll have this conversation anyway, because Trish is in the room and she's only heard me say it like 5 times. So I always talk to my grad students about figuring out who you are as a librarian. Those of you that are in grad school, if you don't have me as your professor, this is your one chance to get that free lecture from me. So, you know, we throw a lot at you in grad school about amazing librarians and what the best librarians do. And we give you this massive toolbox of best practices. And then we graduate you and say, congratulations, go be a librarian. And you drag that gigantic toolbox out and say, I don't even know where to begin. There's no way I can do all this. And then 6 months in, you think, I shouldn't have gotten this degree. I don't deserve it. I've only done 75 of the 622 things they showed me. I'm not worthy. And I don't want you to feel that way. So I always talk to my grad students about figuring out who they are as librarians. So oftentimes that is who you are as a teacher informs who you are as a librarian. So I could tell Trisha to close her ears, but she's going to hear it through rumor anyway. I'm not really a makerspace person, okay? And I hate saying that because Trisha's a very much makerspace person. I know she almost passed out. I don't know if y'all can see her. Trisha is all about makerspace. Like she's literally wrote books about makerspaces. So that's not me though. So my strength is in instruction and collaboration. I know I was a really good teacher, and I know I'm an even better teacher now, which is sad because I wish I could go back in time and be that really amazing teacher in the classroom now that I'm a librarian, but that's okay. Um, I know that's my strength. And so I play on my strength, and when I take a job, that's the strength I bring. I bring my technology skills and my instruction skills. So when we had to stay home, that's why I was able to shine, because the instruction in my building didn't know how to happen. And I was able to step in and say, this part I can help you with because I'm good at technology and I'm good at instruction, and I know I can help you guys figure out how to do online instruction. So in this home environment, think about collaboration and PD opportunities that have come up because you're at home. So if you have a great collaborative relationship already with your teachers, that's awesome. Please continue that. If you did not have that before, this is your chance. You need to reach out and start creating some content and some opportunities to link up with teachers to help them make whatever is happening online the best it can be. Teachers are struggling right now to figure out how to make instruction awesome, because even the best teachers, when they create online learning, don't think it's good enough because of the way they think teaching is supposed to happen. They're home, or I'm sorry, when they're at school, they're running around, their classroom is loud, they're just like super engaging the kids, they're moving from one activity to another. You can see great learning is happening. This home environment is killing them. It's hurting their souls because this is not how they teach. This is your chance to step in and help show them how they can still do amazing teaching, even though they don't have all that chaos going around that they normally want, okay? So what happened with my teachers, I mentioned earlier, was that we created an online resource that showed teachers how to take their practice from classroom to virtual. So those of you that are on the Nearpod can play with this on your own. And the rest of you, I'm going to show it to you here. So this is the website we created, and you'll be really impressed. So I'm going to pretend you're clapping. We created this in a week. It's massive, okay? Don't think you can tackle this all on your own and create something like this in a week. This was done by an entire team of teachers with me. But we created what we thought everybody needed. So remember, as you're creating this virtual space or as you're figuring out how to serve your patrons, you always start with predicting what it is they need by remembering what they usually need, okay? So we predicted what our teachers were gonna need. So we created these online teaching resources, and we had just the basics for teachers who could have retired 4 years ago, but were just bumping up their retirement check. And so they were just like struggling anyway. When we went virtual, they said, I can't do, there's no way I can do this. And so we got just the basics for them on like what the district required of them. So we showed them, just how to use the basic tools. But for the rest, we wanted to expand their knowledge. So we created and we compiled videos that showed how to do different things. So how to use the different Google tools. We went out and searched for what we considered the best tools. And so we created screencasts and videos on YouTube that showed how to use Nearpod and VoiceThread and quizzes and Edpuzzle. We taught our teachers how to communicate with their kids and with the parents. So we showed them how to use Teams, which was the platform we were using, but we also showed them how to use Zoom and how to do the different things in Zoom. So we created small videos where they could just learn a little chunk at a time for the one thing they wanted to know. We taught them how to use Remind so that they could text out to parents. We taught them how to use Google Calendar so that they could, sorry, some people are saying the link's not working. If the link's not working, I apologize. You should be able to see it on my shared screen though. We taught them how to use Google Calendar, not only to organize their time, but to create time slots where students could make a reservation and book a time to talk with the teacher. And for the elementary kids, it was so that parents could go in and click and make an appointment to talk with the teacher. So it was everything we thought they would need. And then we could have really good conversations about things like formative assessment. So that was something that I couldn't talk to my teachers about before because they were, resisting and they just wanted me to check books out. But suddenly I could say the word formative assessment with teachers and I could start talking to them about tools for formative assessment, like surveys and polls, Padlets, Quizlets, Socrative, Kahoot, all those things. We started talking to them about making different products and allowing students to choose the type of product so they could choose access to resources and choose the products they were coming up with. So we started linking those and doing instructional videos for those as well. And this is one of those predicting what your patrons need. This one we hadn't thought of, and a teacher brought it to our attention. She said, all this stuff is really getting to us. What if you guys gave us some things about mindfulness and wellness? because we're really stressed out. So we created a page for that, and we had like 2-minute yoga, and we had meditations where they could go and meditate for 3 minutes. We had places where they could go to find meditative music. We had videos on growth mindset and on mindfulness. We had places they could go to read inspirational stories. So yes, social emotional learning. That's right, Vivian. It's one of the big key phrases in education right now. And one of our teachers pointed out that they needed some social emotional learning. So it was about providing everything that the patrons needed. And by the way, for those videos, we looked for instructional videos on YouTube when we were in a pinch, and other times we created them ourselves using just the camera on our computers and doing something like Screencast-O-Matic or things like that, and then uploading them to YouTube. But if you're not that person that likes to create your own videos, most of the common tools, you can find videos already online on how to use those. Like even for Destiny, I'm sure 500 people have created videos on how to search for a book in Destiny. So if you don't feel like creating, or that's not your skill set, you can find those. So virtual librarian is the last thing I want to talk about, which is something that, again, I did in A-Leaf. So shout out to Lisa again. Something I did in A-Leaf 15 plus years ago, when we were talking about needing for our students to be able to reach us when we weren't there. And so something I did on my campus was virtual librarianship in the evening. Now I'm going to caveat this with our district had money to pay me to work in the evening. So at home I could log in. Yes, something in the water in A-Leaf does grow good librarians. You're right, Lisa. I was able to log in for 2 hours twice a week and do virtual librarianship. So students could go in, enter the chat with me, and they could ask me anything about research, databases, homework help, and I would point them in that direction. Sometimes kids would just ask me if I had a book. So it would be a basic library question, but sometimes it was, I have to do, um, I have to give a speech and debate about an ethical issue, and I need to look up both sides, and I don't even know where to start. So then it was a great conversation between me and the student about considering both viewpoints and where can we find that information, and using trustworthy news sources and finding databases that present both sides of the issue and evaluating those resources. So I was able to have some really good librarian and student conversations when I wasn't even in the library. I was just at home virtual, and I wasn't on camera. This was pre-camera. I just told how old I was. This was pre-getting on camera, so this was all just chat. So the kids would chat and I would respond. And like I said, I did it 2 hours, 2 nights a week. But now that technology is way better, consider virtual librarianship either live, like I did it in the evenings, or you may be doing virtual librarianship live during the day since we can't go back to school. So you could think about scheduling times and putting that on your website saying, here's all the resources available to you, but the librarian will actually be online from 10 to 1. So, feel free to log on during that time to ask questions. Or you may schedule events. You might say, we're going to do a makerspace together. So log in from 11 to 12 on Tuesday, and the librarian's going to get on. Here's the materials that you should have at home. Just collect those, and we're going to work on them together. And then you get on, and you're on camera, and you're doing the makerspace with the kids. See, Trisha, I did makerspace. Look, that was just for you. Think about doing read alouds, activities with your students, maybe walking through some websites with them. Maybe you found a cool website where they can all get online and do multiplayer games together, and maybe you schedule getting online and showing it to everybody, and then you launch it and you let them go and play, and then you're offline. So just think about all the things you can offer: information, citation help, research help, all those things that you can offer as a virtual librarian, whether it's in the evenings or it's during the daytime live, or if you don't feel like going live, because I know some of you don't like talking. That's not me. I love talking. Trisha knows that. If you don't like getting on camera and talking, those can be recorded. So have somebody at your house. If you have a teenager at home, they know how to do recordings. So have your teenager pull up the camera and record you doing a makerspace lesson for 10 minutes, and then pop that up there and have that as something that your kids can access as the virtual librarian, showing me how to do a fun makerspace. Okay, and remember, you're serving not just the kids, but you're serving the parents and you're serving the teachers as well. So think about all the things you can offer as a virtual librarian to all of your different patrons. And now I'm supposed to do Q&A. So I've kind of been looking at Q&A, but sometimes I talk too much and I don't look. And I noticed that some of you were answering questions to each other, and I appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for me? And you don't have to type them. You can turn on your mic because I feel kind of silly talking to myself. I'm scrolling back up and it looks like, so Mike offered a suggestion, novelengineering.org by Tufts, combines literacy and makerspaces. Trisha, you might want to write that one down. I bet Trisha actually made that website. We just don't know. Trisha, should I?
Oh, sorry. I was going
No,
to
go
say,
ahead.
somebody, looking back, somebody was asking about accessibility to individuals with disabilities in terms of the library website.
Yes, thank you for pointing that. I did see that question and then I never got to it. So thanks for bringing that one up. So you're going to definitely want to talk to your district people about making sure whatever you do on your website is accessible. And I think that person was specifically talking about images, and that someone that was visually impaired wouldn't be able to see those correctly, and that there had to be words or text behind the images.
Yeah, that was me asking the question.
Okay.
Because my library mentor had basically told me that back in the spring semester, and it might have been the entire school year, but they were told not to do anything on their websites, not to update anything, not to add anything, because the district was still in deliberations on how they were going to handle it. So it was very frustrating for me as a grad student, because we were learning all the best practices in our classes. The instructors are encouraging us to make the libraries without walls, but the reality is that you have this other stuff going on. And so I had an amazing library mentor, but her hands were literally tied. And I don't know if maybe because this pandemic is going to loosen that up, but it was just, it was a big issue. And she couldn't, like, her website was not what she wanted it to be at all, because the district hadn't figured out what they wanted to do with all that. So
Yeah, that's one of those stumbling blocks. I'm sorry you experienced that, Jennifer. That is something you have to work with your district on, because I could give you my answer, but it would get you in trouble. So I'm not going to give you my answer. Trisha's laughing because she knows how I am. Because my answer, I'm not going to give it because I'm not going to get you in trouble. Never mind. I almost just blurted it out. Okay. Yes, somebody wants the registration. Oh, I can't do that. Sorry. I forgot I wasn't on there. Sarah, could you put the registration link for the next webinar in the chat?
Yeah, let me grab that.
Thank you. Other questions while I'm still here? I appreciate all of you coming, especially my librarians from my district. Thanks for supporting me. And any of you that were visiting because your director in Houston suggested that you do it, that was also because I was pushy with them. So I apologize. But if you're a grad student, I saw somebody say they were a grad student and they were excited and wanted to be a librarian now. Like, they don't want to wait. You know what? Some of the districts are still hiring. So put your name out there. I'm still looking for one librarian. So, I mean, if you want to work, if you want to work with this craziness, I still have one opening in my district, but I know there are several districts in the Houston area that still have job openings.
And Sarah, do you want to tell them where they can see the recording too of this webinar? Isn't it all on the same site? Well, or it will be tomorrow?
It will be in the next couple days. It'll be on, we have a multiple literacies lab website, and then we also have a multiple literacies lab, YouTube channel. So if you literally go to YouTube and type in multiple literacies lab, you should get us, but it's also available on our website.
Sorry, I was answering someone's question in the chat. Let's see.
Oh, good.
Can you type the website?
Oh,
I guess I can stop sharing. Oh, no, I'll leave the screen up. Never mind. I tried to multitask. I won't do that. I just discovered that if you forget to put the T in UNT, you end up in the United Nations.
That makes
Awesome.
sense.
I think that's it. Sarah, is that the right one?
Hmm?
Oh, you already put it. Never mind, you beat me to it. Okay. Yeah, so Emily gave some information about if you still are in library school, you can get a probationary certificate for 1 year. So if you think you're going to finish your library courses in the next year, you can get a probationary certificate and you can take a job as a school librarian. Stephen, if you have teaching certification and have taught for 2 years and are in library school, then you can get a library job. But I'm not sure.
You mentioned private school. If it's an accredited private school, you do need those 2 years of experience. But if it's an accredited private school, those can count.
Oh, Barbara's in the room. Barbara, I didn't know you were in here. Barbara said it's emergency certification, not probationary internship.
I knew there'd be a reason for me to be here.
I know. Ugh, my boss is in the room now.
This has been great, Marco. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you
Oh,
so
good.
much
Thanks.
for leading this. Yeah, it's great.
It was amazing.
Spring, it looks like Spring is hiring people. We're getting all kind of hiring information here. Most districts only require 12 hours of library coursework. That's correct. I'm not going to say this either. Never mind. Because Barbara's in the room and Trish is in the room.
Yeah.
Oh, Stephen, you have an interview with Spring. Good. I was going to say, if you have an interview with Spring Branch, that's Lisa's district, and she's in the room right now, but you're at Spring, so that's different.
Good luck on your interview.
Yes. Carol, yes, you can still sign up for the webinars even after you graduate. We have people that are not even connected to UNT that are here in the webinar. Good luck, Stephen. Oh, look, Stephen, you made a connection. Jessica Jackson is in Spring, so she's connecting with you in chat. You might want to exchange emails. Erica, good luck to you too. Stephen, you have your library degree already? Why aren't you applying in my district?
Okay, it might be easier for me to get off mute instead of typing all of these things. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you have your library certification?
No, I don't. I rolled at UNT though, so I'm supposed to start there in the fall to get my certificate, which is how I found out about this this webinar, which was great. Thank you. But I do have a degree already. I got from Drexel. I graduated in June. And I also have a master's in education.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you don't even have to go through the full master's program.
Right.
Okay.
You will love UNT. I got an excellent degree from there.
Yes, no one should get a degree from anywhere else, really.
No, UNT.
Stephen, go on to Aldine. Do you live near Aldine?
I'm fairly close, yeah.
Go on to the Aldine ISD website and go ahead and put in your application. That's my district.
Is it?
Yeah.
You know what? I was actually just talking to them today at this virtual fair, and I didn't get anywhere, so that's good to know. I've been talking to David Villarreal.
I don't know
about getting work.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
But if you want to apply, go ahead and apply for the librarian opening.
Okay.
Yeah. I know there's a person who interviewed for that open position, but I haven't heard back. So.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yep. Aldine is a great district. See, Derek Bauman said Aldine is a great district. I don't know why Derek would say that.
I would definitely do that.
Spring Branch is also, you're right, Lisa. Spring Branch is also good. All right, any other questions? I've kept you all longer than I'm supposed to. So I don't see any last questions, so I think we're done. So I don't,
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Sarah, are you the one that closes it so you can get the recording?
Well, yes, I will. I can stop the recording right now. So that's
Awesome.
good.
Thanks everybody for attending.